Hello, everybody. Welcome to Evidence, the Weekend Evolution Show, Episode 2. We've got with us here today Ian Chen. We've got Scott.
Hello.
Hello.
Atheist
Yes,
Jr.
Scott.
said he was going to drop by. I send out all kinds of invitations for this show, but so I never know who all is going to drop it. But I think it was going to be a slightly shorter show this week. You know, I'm really looking forward to Bad
Not
Science.
4 hours long like last one. Not 4 hours long, Austin, like last time, is it?
Yeah. Last time we went really long. I am still exhausted from that world-class debate last night. That absolute whooping that Mark Reed and my friend Dr. Blitzy laid on some of the two biggest YouTube flat earthers. It was amazing. There was over 1,000 people watching. It was the most traffic I'd ever had to my channel. I gained almost 20 plus subscribers last night. That was pretty cool. But yeah, we were all up really late. Especially, I think Mark and Blitz were real exhausted because they did like a 3-hour Q&A after that debate. It was ridiculous. Oh, but yeah. So this is episode 2.
I didn't catch it, Austin. But can someone educate me on how you can spend 3 hours answering questions on flat Earth? I mean, you just have to ask one. Is the Earth flat? No. Debate over.
Right.
Like, how can you go 3 hours with questions?
Are you familiar with the channel Modern Day Debate?
Yes, I am. I did debate on there once. It's not on there. It was my first debate with Nephilim Free, and he rage quit, so they didn't put it on. But yeah, I'm quite familiar with them.
Modern Day Debate is the overgrown or overflowing septic tank of the internet.
Yeah. So
my voice has been bad.
Yeah, and Mark pointed this out after the debate that what kind of happens over there, Ian, is they'll debate any subject, any topic, even one as psychopathic as is the Earth flat, and generally the team that does worse is the team that gets the most questions afterwards. And they had a lot of questions for the flat Earthers. A lot of people in the audience being like, "What in the fuck are these guys talking about?" Can one of these guys show us the edge? Exactly your point, Ian.
I actually wonder if they believe in it. Do you think they believe in it, or do you think they just do it for the grift?
What? That's a great question.
I don't believe in it.
I think there are a couple of them who are mostly like really extremely religious and really extremely uneducated who do kind of sincerely believe it, maybe a little bit. But I do think, that most of them are just trolls. It's just an easy way to get attention. It's an easy way to make people with brain cells want to put their head through the wall. Which narcissists love to do. So it does attract a lot of narcissists who are being insincere and don't actually believe it. So I do think that's a great question.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I remember in high school. No, it wasn't even high school. I think it was elementary, and this was back in the 70s. We had
1870s. Was it or
the 1970s? Yes.
Just kidding, mate. Just kidding.
You're cool, Ian.
But that's a good question, though. It's always ask those good questions. But we had this one kid who argued with this. They had these physicists and scientists and stuff that would just tour all the different schools to be the smart, hip scientist that's good with kids. And so they had a physicist doing all these demonstrations and stuff. And we had this one kid who would constantly argue with the guy about the Doppler effect. The freaking Doppler effect.
That's an interesting thing to argue about.
He was a kid. He was a stupid kid. But, he was just one of these buck the system, question everything kind of guys. Yeah, I figured had he not been murdered in a drug deal in the 80s, he would have probably ended up being a flat earther or something like that.
Oh man, that story went off the rails, but I think you're right about that. He got murdered in a drug deal? That's crazy.
In fact, it was part of some big scandal that involved the Clinton administration, but it was actually involved organized crime in Arkansas that had something to do with the Clintons or Whitewater or whatever. But
that's crazy.
It was only tangentially related. Right, yeah. But he appeared in some of the investigative reports as part of the drug organization that somehow was loosely related to the Clinton administration, somehow, allegedly. But anyway, yeah, the guy was just bucked the system. He was probably intelligent, but he was just this empty husk of a soulless individual. And
so, Scott, I assume you know what the Doppler effect is. Ian,
I do. And everybody knew, because the guy made jokes about swinging a cat by its tail and a train. And
right. Yes.
Real clear and real simple. But the guy was arguing with the guys. No, that's not it. It can't be.
That's such a crazy thing to argue about because it's so observable. The Doppler effect is the apparent change in pitch of sounds as they approach and retreat from you.
Well,
if you like you say in your example of the swinging a cat around, that's you would experience the Doppler effect if somebody did that in front of you. Yeah, that's a great example. So that's wild that
no different.
Anybody would say that's not real.
Yeah, it's no different to me than the people that question around Earth. Spheroid Earth, and it's the mentality. It's just pick me, see me. I'm different. I don't want to be like you losers who just follow lockstep with the establishment.
So we should do a kind of breakdown, a psychological breakdown as to why these people believe the way they do. Because I think, Scott, you might have honed in on something that I actually believe in, is that people who are flat earthers and maybe even young earth questioners, not the ones who are really deeply religious, they just want to feel like they're special, that they have special information that no one else out there has. Ergo, I'm special, I'm different, I'm better than you. There must be some sort of psychological traits for these kind of people that they kind of share in common. And someone should probably, we should get a psychiatrist to come and kind of break down the way these kind of people think. I think it's I don't know. I just think they obviously think differently, and they obviously, I think it's, they want to be special somehow. Except obviously also
research. In conspiratorial thinking, Ian, there's a ton of psychology and science research about that. And in psychology, there's this thing called Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Where it talks about what you need to have a regulated, healthy mental psychodynamic landscape, right? And some of those things can be secured by maladaptive psychological schemas, and that's why people invest in them. Things like narcissism.
I know there was a research report that came out a couple of years ago, Austin, that basically said that Republicans had a very high they were more likely to believe in conspiracy theories just because of the way they were psychologically kind of I guess put together or built, or whatever the right words are, but they kind of alluded to a lot of Republicans have that kind of psychological profile that makes them very susceptible to, conspiracies, maybe things like not breaking down the logic that you need to kind of conclude an old earth and all that kind of stuff. So I thought that was interesting. I mean, I'm from Australia.
Exactly the experiment you're talking about. And yes, that was a super fascinating experiment because it showed, to really boil it down and excessively simplify it, that Democrats are more about altruism. They respond to ideas that talk about taking care of people. And Republicans, right-wing conservative types, their brains are very safety-oriented. Safety is like their biggest priority. And because of that, it does lend themselves to conspiratorial thinking a little more, because when you're concerned with safety, that can often become is paranoia. And paranoia is irrational. It's not a logical response to a real threat.
That makes sense, Austin. It does make sense, though I'd probably kind of say, is it safety or is it just wanting not to change? Because as an Aussie, okay, so I'm Australian, guys, in the audience. As an Australian, I know a lot of Republicans want to keep the American kind of gun laws the way they are now. And as an Australian, I just think that you guys are so super crazy in what your gun laws are. It's like you're too open, all right? So I kind of see that as not being safe. The fact that you want to stay the same in your gun laws to me is not being safe. But is it safety, Austin, or is it more reluctant to change? It's like I don't want to change because I'm comfortable where I am. I don't want to do anything different, because if I were to say that I wanted to be safe, I'd have stricter. Hey, Dave, I'd have stricter gun laws, for example. And I'm coming from an Aussie perspective where we do not have that lax kind of gun laws that you guys have in the States.
I don't disagree with you, honestly. I do think firearm regulations should be a little more strident, for sure. Yeah. I would not be against testing people psychologically to make sure,
and for those in the audience that kind of poo-poo what you said,
newly divorced alcoholic trying to purchase a firearm, things like that.
Yeah,
but we don't want to make the whole stream about politics. We wanted to talk a little, do some housekeeping, and then get into embryology and how it's evidence of evolution. But I don't disagree. We should do just about that.
I want to hear Dave say something because I just love his voice. Dave, say something.
Hello, Ian. How you doing?
Wait, I've just got to tune my hearing aids to pick up the lower frequency. Just wait.
Now, something that was said.
The weather outside is frightful, but the fire is so delightful.
Okay, I think I got you there.
I think with my voice the way it is, I could go lower than Dave.
Oh, really?
Dave being here reminds me of our Snatto last night. And I want to ask right now, I want to ask a question of Ian and just respond. Don't ask any questions about it. But say microevolution.
Microevolution.
Okay, see, I don't know where that guy and his micro. My theory was,
yeah, too bad meat couldn't make it.
You know how you're supposed to steel man somebody? I wanted to steel man. Is that Victoria?
Yeah, it is. It is.
Gosh,
she came and gave me some chocolate. So.
Oh my!
Oh, awesome!
What a gal!
Yeah. That's adorable.
But
she looks after Daddy. That's for sure.
He accused the guy we were listening to last night and evaluating, shall we say, said that the British people called microevolution microevolution. And I thought, no, they do not. And I thought, well, maybe an Australian would.
Micro. It's micro. I assume British speaks very similar to Aussie, but it's micro for me, not micro.
Yeah. What about the Kiwi, the New Zealanders? Do they have a way of? I'm assuming you hear more New Zealanders than me.
No, they would say micro as well.
Yeah, so I don't know where the guy's coming from on that. It's just odd.
Micro.
Yeah, he was weird on several levels. It looks like we've got Meek himself. Hey, Meek.
Yeah, Meek. Hi, it's Meek.
Hey, Mike. How you doing?
That's how they say it over in Britain.
Yeah.
Oh, I had Brits right on my panel with me. Brainless and Dog are right there on the panel going, we don't say it like that.
They were like,
but it be known that atheists do try to steel man their interlocutors.
I just happened to have some Brits handy on the panel last night, so that was a big fail on his part.
Anyway, I'm just waiting for my son to depart. I'm just going to be here for a few minutes.
Well, good. You can be around for the housekeeping announcements, which we're still working our way through.
Yeah,
I think we made the first housekeeping announcement, which was go watch Mark Reed and Dr. Blitz absolutely annihilate one of the biggest flat earthers in the world. Watch the after party if you want to. I'm trying to get up there to 1,000 subscribers so I can start making some money off of this fighting pseudoscience stuff. And we're getting up there. We're making progress. I was telling them I gained like 20 subscribers over just one night last night, and that was pretty nice. The other housekeeping announcement is related to what Ian was asking me before we went live. Who's my next debate going to be? And I'm working on it. I've been trying to figure it out.
Victim. My next
victim. I actually think I might have already pegged my next victim, Ian. I'm glad Dave and Mike are here because we talked about it in their last the live chat we did together the other night. There's this guy. I almost don't even want to say. I won't say his channel name. I'll say the handle he goes by. This guy Maxed Out, because I don't want to drive any.
Oh no! Oh no! Oh no!
Maxed Out.
Not
this
maxed
guy
out.
is the worst. What an absolute pile of crap this guy is. And I was thinking about doxing him, but I decided not to do it. I've only shared the information that he publicly shares on all of his accounts, which is that he's from New York. He's a DJ. But when I first met him, he tried to like say, you know, oh, I study science. All my friends are geneticists. I met him in the Mark Reed's after party show after the Kent Hovind debate. And he challenged me, Mark Reed, and this guy, Bitter Truth, to evolution debates. And Bitter Truth is not a native English speaker. So, of course, he's the only one that, you know, this Maxed Out jagoff actually went after. He got Bitter Truth over on his channel alone, where he could mute his mic and had like 5 buddies on his panel and had Bitter debate all of his buddies at the same time with no specific topic, no real format. They kept screaming over him. They kept muting him. They kept interrupting him. And then they started screaming racist insults at him. And Bitter still kicked all of their asses, which is the funniest part. So then he started tagging his homeboys in from the side. Bitter ended up debating like 8 or 9 of them for 2.5 hours, destroyed all of them, pointed out what asswipes they were being, and left. And they were, of course, still talking shit about him after he left. And I have put out the challenge to this Maxed Out jackoff to come onto my channel where it's fair and it's actually got a format and he doesn't get to dogpile with his 20 racist bros. But I don't think he's going to take me up on that debate because he probably knows it's not going to be a nice debate. I'm going to fucking kick his ass. I'm going to really, give him the treatment he deserves after what he did to my friend Bitter. And I'm not going to stop bringing up the fact that his only qualification, his only marketable skill is that he can push play on a laptop. And yet he thinks he's going to disprove evolution. So he might be my next victim, but I might have already smoked that victim, my friend Ian. So I don't know. I've got the feelers out. Send some creationists my way. Send some flat earthers.
His channel. His channel is American Zombie, right?
Yeah, but I didn't want to say that. I didn't want to send people to his channel and give him more subscribers. But yeah.
Oh, who cares? I mean,
tell us more about it, Matt.
Elitist, Austin. You know that anybody who can press a laptop can do the research and become an expert on evolution.
That's true.
In one weekend.
Right, yeah.
I'm looking for the Bitter Truth thing.
Tell us more about
his live videos. It's a debate. It's a video called "Was Darwin Wrong?" And it's awful. I couldn't sit through the whole thing. I sat through like the first 30 minutes, and then I started fast forwarding through about 7 to 10 minutes at a time. And oh my God, it was just an absolute smackdown. Bitter is so well researched about this, and it's so unfair and cruel what they did to him because he's not an English speaker. Oh my God, I was so mad for him. But yeah, that's I think that's all of the housekeeping. I don't know if there's anything else.
Next week we're doing the embryology thing with the thumbnail you had for today, correct?
I figured we were going to do a part 2 because I know you were prepping specific remarks. And I had some stuff I was going to go over today, and we're going to keep it a kind of short one today. Yeah, and then we're going to all go over and watch Bad Science Sunday on Maya Atkinson's channel. It's a great show.
I'll try to stop by and chat. We'll see how things are going. I just listened to a playlist and watch Bad Science Sunday. Watch their mouths move, and like. Anyway,
fair enough, Reggie. You're right.
Yep. Anyway. Yeah, what is the topic tonight for Bad Science Sunday?
I don't even know, but last week's was amazing. It was one of the craziest things I've ever seen.
Really? I didn't catch it last week.
It was this wild cult that has like a whole space array of humanoid species, this whole space. It was amazing. They have species with 2 brains that are drawn with heads that look like giant ball sacks. It was overwhelmingly hilarious.
So tonight it's gonna be up yours, woke moralists. Yeah.
That sounds great. I'm very much looking forward.
That's actually an intriguing title.
Yeah, for sure.
I'll throw the Earl out here in chat.
Yeah.
Let's see. Cool. Anyway.
So let's get to the meat and potatoes of the subject a little bit. Today's episode of Evidence is about embryology. So let's go around and ask the people on the panel, how does embryology support evolution? And I'll start us off. How does embryology support evolution? Well, there's these things called embryonic similarities. Embryos of different species often have similarities that are not visible in the fully formed organisms. For example, barnacles and other crustaceans have different appearances as adults, but their larval stages are similar. And that's interesting because that's one of the way we've constructed phylogeny. We used to think that crustaceans and what are they called? Not crustaceans and then mollusks were a lot more closely related than they are. We used to have a hard time figuring out where barnacles and limpets go on that organizational phylogeny. And because of embryology, we were able to figure out that, limpets are mollusks and barnacles are more closely related to crustaceans. So that's the first point. Then we have homologous structures. Embryos have homologous structures, features that are similar across species. I know multiple people in this panel have talked about this in debates with the Hawaiian shirt man, the laryngeal gill arches. Then we've got gene sequences. Many organisms, including fruit flies, worms, mice, and humans, have similar gene sequences that are active early in development. These genes influence body segmentation or orientation. And one of these, especially that I found super mind-blowingly intriguing, are called the Hox genes. And I hope we get to talk about the Hox genes later because they're so cool. We'll make some Hox Tua jokes to make some memes out of, I guess, because we're going to be saying Hox a lot. Then we've got developmental mechanics. This one is a big one for me. Embryos develop the same in very similar ways. There's a lot of different diverse forms of life that have remarkably similar embryological developmental mechanics. Super fascinating. And that is especially true for vertebrates. All vertebrates develop similarly, almost every single one, suggesting common ancestry. For example, the embryos of humans and chickens undergo similar developmental processes, even though the adults look very different. And there's a famous example of this where a journalist went on Charlie Kirk's show, and Charlie Kirk is a prolific right-wing kind of he is the cringy debate bro that I am satirizing with the name that I use everywhere, my cringy debate bro name. And somebody went on his show, and of course they got him passionately talking about anti-abortion stuff. And he pulled out a picture of a fetus and said, "You think this is a human?" And Charlie said immediately, "Yes, unequivocally, absolutely I do." At which point the guy realized this is a dolphin fetus. So
that was going to be my answer. You just stole my answer. I was going to say that's the exact thing right there, is that you can't tell the difference.
Yeah. Well, you get to go into that more on your term. That was just my very generalized kind of synopsis. So let's move on and ask other members of the panel now. We'll start with Ian.
Yeah. Hey. So love everything you said, Austin. I think they're great. And I'm trying to put a bit of a young earth creationist lens on that. You know what they'll say? You know what Ken Hovind will say? He'll dismiss all the evidence and he'll say, God created it that way. Okay, so he will just go, well, similarities because God did it, because it works, and that's why it's the same. And he won't actually listen to the evidence. He'll just put this really umbrella term that to the uneducated sounds like a good rebuttal to the uneducated. So I think to me the best evidence for embryology is the differences. So when we think through, when you think through the evolutionary process of, how a whale kind of was produced, how a whale evolved, and we think through that it came from, ungulates, from land animals that slowly lost their fins and slowly lost their legs or their limbs, their rear limbs, to become rear fins. And then we look at the embryos and we see that kind of replicated embryos. So we see embryos of whales actually start budding out limbs, and then those limbs kind of stop and they get reabsorbed back into the body. And that's evidence to me that obviously in a distant past, it used to have rear limbs, which then kind of manifested itself in the embryo before some development in the genes told it to stop developing that and reabsorb back to the body, because the extent whale we have it today does not have it. That's just one example. You look at the jaws, the jaws of lizards, for example, and even humans, and you'll see that those bones that start to form in the embryos start to migrate up and form into the ears. So that's how we know that those ear bones came from the jaw bones, which used to detect vibrations in the water. Obviously vibrations useful for the ear as well. So it's what I call the differences that kind of prove evolution, and that is kind of manifested in the kind of embryos itself. And the reason why I think that's the best evidence is when the creationists say, well, the reason why it's so similar, Austin, all those are good points, but it's similar because God created that way, because it does the same kind of function. Then you can say, well, why did God create limbs that get stopped and reabsorbed back in the like the human body as well? If you look at the human embryos, we start getting little tails that start to stick out, that stops developing and gets reabsorbed back in the body. Why did God do that? Was it a mistake? I try to look at things in like what creationists would say and try to rebut it that way. That's what I would say.
Scott called it. They'll blame it on sin. But I want to make my first spit on that thing joke, because a lot of the stuff you were talking about there, Ian, it's super fundamental about Hox genes. Those limbs, those limb changes, that's all Hox genes. By manipulating Hox genes, scientists can turn a limb from a pedal limb into a fin. They can turn it into a dragging limb. They can turn it into no limb. They can even take a limb Hox gene from a rat and insert it into a fly in the abdomen section of its genome, and it'll make a fly limb instead of a rat limb on the fly's
and you know what that tells me, Austin? That tells me that that particular gene, the Hox genes, is so fundamental to the last common ancestor that it just doesn't change. It hasn't changed for billions of years, right?
That is exactly.
But that is exactly what evolution says. So when Ken Hovind says, a dog produces a dog, or a cow produces a cow, well, of course, evolution says a eukaryote always produces more eukaryotes. So those eukaryotes may change, that we may call it something else, but it's still eukaryote. And at the very base of it, what is the eukaryote just doesn't change. You get what I mean? So when you talk about putting the Hox genes of a mouse into a fly, or I think it was maybe even vice versa,
they did
those
both,
genes are so fundamental to what an extant creature is today, that we know that they were fundamental back in billions of years ago in the common ancestor, that it's just not going to change because it's been fixed. You get what I mean? So that to me is once again evidence that it's evolution.
Hey, we got Atheist Junior in the chat. I'm going to ask him if he wants to mic up and join us.
There's something wrong with my chat, because a lot of it's missing. Because all I can read from AJ is, "Hey guys, sorry I have been busy mounting."
That's all. That's all.
Mounting. What is he mounting now?
Yeah, but well done, AJ. Good stuff. Good work.
I had a dog that used to do that all the time.
Yeah, and I've been making jokes with my friends at work about how I'm disappointed that manipulating Hox genes only works for revising body plans when an organism is in the embryonic stage. Because if you could do it to an organism in a more developed stage, I would totally pay for a second set of arms and be like Goro in Mortal Kombat.
So would it be like hop tweet? Would that, if you had like a second set or something else?
So they're actually working on that for with the possibility of limb regeneration. So they're actually
trying to figure something God never did.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Except for salamanders.
Scott, that's a great point, right? Like that was a big thing I thought about when I was deconverting, was God's never answered the prayer of a single amputee and given them a new limb. But Mike is telling me science is on the cusp of actually doing it, which, again, I think this is part of why science lives rent-free in religion's head. religion promises miracles, but science actually delivers them, and that makes them insecure and nervous.
Now, I would like to get back to Charlie Kirk's response to that porpoise embryo.
Sure.
Was it the 2-word killer response? No. What did he say to that?
You know what? The friend who sent it to me, it was just a loop that ends with, "This is a dolphin fetus." Okay. I don't know how Charlie reacted to it after that. But I assume it wasn't the revelatory moment for him that it should have been. But yeah. So that was Ian. Scott, should we ask you about embryology, or do you want to pass?
I don't have any knowledge beyond better than what's already been offered, but I have a quick detail question. I recall seeing a documentary of a geneticist working on chicken embryos, and he did some sort of manipulation to where the chicken grew teeth in the embryo, because they don't bring those past the embryonic stage.
I believe that is real.
Okay, so they started at some stage and made a manipulation that was already in there that provided teeth. Now, no, birds today don't have teeth. When did their relatives have teeth?
I think we would
when they ate watermelons.
Dinosaurs, yeah.
Yeah, back when they were munching on watermelons.
The dino chicken.
Dino chicken, yeah.
Yeah, no, that is a true thing. Another interesting one, Scott, that's kind of similar is that they've been able to manipulate the gene sequences that create scales and convert them into gene sequences that create feathers, which is another strong substantiation of evolutionary models of development. Because if scales can become feathers, the dinosaurs to birds route becomes a little more, doable.
Plus, it also kind of supports the idea of monophyly, which means you never quit being that thing from which you evolved. And so, it's like creationists only want to see a very narrow part of the picture. They want to say they want to start with dog and say a dog can't ever be anything but a dog. But we're kind of saying the same thing, except we're saying, let's start with dinosaur, and birds never quit being dinosaurs. They've still got the genetics in there. It's just been switched off by all the various genetic processes that activate and deactivate the genetic code.
Well, Ken Ham's never going to accept that, because he has to differentiate dinosaurs as being land animals and birds being birds. And so they'll never accept that just because of their literal holding to the Bible.
Except the phrase in the Bible is birds of the air or flying things.
Right. Flying things.
And emus. And how are they birds if they don't fly? So
you're right. Yeah. It's a category.
They just stupid. They just stupid.
Like
I know how to fly. I know how to fly.
So, and kind of on your point, Scott, a little bit too, about, experiments with evolutionary concepts combined with embryology, cloning. There's a big freaking one. Remember in the 90s, I think everybody on this panel is old enough to remember the entire world collectively flipping out over the fact that some guy cloned a sheep. Cloning is, that's real. That's an actual possibility now. So I can't have 4 arms and be Goro from Mortal Kombat, but I could go get an embryonic clone of me and get him modified and give him the worry there, though, is that he will turn on me and become evil, and then I will have to defeat a superior version of myself who has, 2 more arms than I do.
It's the Terminator.
Yeah. Right, yeah.
It
becomes
awesome to have a creationist version of yourself, and you could go on modern day debate and debate your clone.
Oh no. Why are you trying to give me nightmares?
Oh, nightmares, yes. Anyway. Well, I got identical twins. They're as close to clones as you can get.
Yeah.
So people can't tell them apart.
Yeah. You said identical?
Yep.
And the other kind is fraternal, right? Ones that were born at the same time, but they don't look similar.
Yeah, mine are considered 88% identical. It depends on when the egg splits apart, depending on how similar identical twins are.
You mean it's not binary?
They've been in the Minnesota Twin Study, which is really famous worldwide since they were infants. And even me and my ex-wife had to go and get electrodes strapped on us and do all kinds of testing until they were 18, and now they're going to be doing it for the rest of their lives. So they'll be in that twin.
So for anyone who doesn't know, and I think this is super interesting, if you yourself have a pair of twins or you know anybody who is a twin, get them to science, because twins are really useful for science, as it turns out, because science often does this thing called a control, where, you know, they have a variable that they manipulate and another variable that they don't to compare the results. And twins are like perfect for that because they're so similar. But also there's a interesting phenomena with twins where like they have like they're really in tune emotionally. There's like, do you know anything about all that stuff, Mike?
Oh, hell yeah. I've lived it. I've watched. In fact, there was a situation that came up. Those two are so bonded together, and they're so interlocked, and their entire lives are just interlocked. They always have been. It's absolutely amazing to have twins, and it's pretty cool. And you know, being a good dad that I am, the first thing I did is donate my kids to science.
Father of the year, Mike. You know what? I would do the same thing if anybody were interested in my kids, and I bet it's opened some doors for you. But no,
it was really cool. They'd invite us out and they'd put us up at a hotel because we lived out of town, and have like 3 days of testing and paid dinners and all kinds of shit. Pretty cool.
And you know what? I bet on the specific topic that evaluating twins in the embryonic stage would be really useful, and you could learn a lot from that too.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you're like kind of right up on the subject there, Mike. I hope we get to talk more next week if we don't cover the stuff you wanted to talk about.
We will. We can give you a little preview. Basically, one thing creationists say is that they've been trying to create a new species of fruit fly forever by mutating them. And no, that's not why they mutate fruit flies. The reason they mutate fruit flies because they're very easy to study. There's like 4 typical organisms: zebrafish, fruit fly, xenopus or African frog, and the mouse. And the reason they manipulate them is so they can figure out what each of these genes do. And one of the genes that they manipulate is the Hox genes, which I have a nice little picture of here. There you go. And teleos fish have 8 pairs of Hox genes. We have 4 on different chromosomes. A lot of it goes way back 600 million years. Okay, shortly after within the first 100 million years of real fossilizable multicellular animals, we ended up with Hox genes. So Hox genes are very early, and they created body plans, and they branched out. You can see this is a phylogenetic tree. You know, the urchins and hemichordates and flies, and here we are, tetrapods. That's us. You can actually see my mouse. Anyway, that is a very interesting field. The other very interesting thing about embryology is cell mechanics. Just a slight modification in the level of certain proteins or genes. The regulation of genes will turn them on to some, either off or on or in between. And that creates these amazing cell mechanics that differentiate cells. And that creates the body plan. And a very amazing thing about that is when the embryo develops from the first stage, when it first splits, the top cell basically is in a little bit different environment than the bottom cell, and they differentiate. Well, from there on, these cells branch out as they split, and they actually evolve in the organism. There's a form of evolution where they will basically there's different cells type called totipotent, which means they can turn into placentas or any cell in the embryo. And then there's
the
multipotent.
pluripotent.
Pluripotent's next, which means it can turn into anything in the embryo. Multipotent means it can turn into anything in a particular organ, like a liver has many cell types. And then, oh my God, what is the other one? There's one more, and I forgot what the hell it is. But anyway, so there's all of this evolution that happens in cells, and as they're evolving, you can watch them crawling around, and I'm moving my hands, and nobody can see me. Let me see what I can do. But they're basically migrating inside the organism, like and there's things like EMT or endothelial to mesenchymal transformations, where basically a cell membrane will split up and start swimming around. And then there's things like your brain is formed from your skin, the outside of you. That's where the nervous system forms. But there are just an amazing number of things that we can get into, and I'm hoping we'll get into some of them next week.
What was that word you just used that had like 40 syllables in it?
That was amazing.
Endothelial to mesenchymal. And I remember Nephilim Free saying how he pronounced mesenchymal in some weird way. Mesenchymal or something. I don't know what the hell anyway.
Yeah, because they only read conspiracy articles online, so they never hear an expert actually pronounce it. But that was a great little embryological amuse-bouche there. I'm looking forward to. Right. Oh man, that might be a poor choice of words. We're not eating embryos over here. I'm very much looking forward to next week's and diving into that a bit more. Captain Dave, or sorry, you know what? When I first saw your channel, Dave, I thought it was Captain Desk, and now I feel like it's kind of set in that you're just Captain Dave a little bit. So sorry if I call you Captain. Dave, do you have anything you want to add?
With the small print or whatever, a lot of people say Captain. It's like it's all good. But yeah, Dave is fine. Well, I would say embryology is good evidence for evolution because of the very reason that Mike did a stream, what was it, last week on Ernst Haeckel, is they seem to have a big issue of going after those embryo images and comparing them to his drawings to somehow make it like all fraudulent. And like we were talking about, you can throw his drawings away. They actually have photographs now inside embryos with tiny little cameras. You can throw all those pictures out, but they're totally skipping over that we actually have these images now and trying to portray it as they're still teaching university students Haeckel's drawings in the textbooks. So the very fact that they go after it, I would say is that it has, because it's such solid evidence.
Yeah, that's
right.
Yeah,
for
and
sure.
even so, and I would just one more thing. And if you overlay his drawings on modern images, they're pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah, they definitely blow that way out of proportion and try to make it sound a lot more fraudulent than it. And I don't think it was intentional. I think Haeckel, his brain saw what it expected to see, which was similarity. And there is a lot of similarity. Like you said, Dave, we have real pictures now, and we can see that they are similar. And so I can understand how his pen might have inadvertently kind of made them look more similar than they were. But I don't think that at all that invalidates a lot of the evidence of evolution.
Yeah, even when they're doing medical stuff, though, back in the day, even though there was always still a little bit of, you could always see some artistry. You know what I mean? It's never, exact. There's always a little touch of something there. You know what I mean? And but again, that's why they do actual photographs now, and that's what they actually learn when they're whatever student in whatever class. So
well, these are drawings here, but they're actual current drawings. And Haeckel knew what he was doing. They had to create woodcut printing presses, right? So they had to create woodcuts from pictures, and he used the same ones out of convenience. And he knew exactly what he was doing. And when he was called on it, he retracted it. He changed his textbooks. He was never thrown out of a university. None of that stuff. So none of that
Again,
happened.
it was a long time. It was a long time ago, and that doesn't discredit the stuff today, right?
One other thing I want to say about embryology that's really important today is when some of these embryonic proteins and genes become active in later life, you get cancer. And cancer tends to be related to embryology, and the study of the evolution of body plans becomes important in cancer. So anyway, and then I'll shut the hell up, and I'm going to get out of here soon. Hi, AJ. Good to see you. Good to see you.
Hey, AJ.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah, you're botting a little bit.
Well, I'm on my phone. I'll join in on the computer in a second.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Is it roboting?
No, we can hear you all right.
No, it's
Little
pretty
bit.
good. Pretty good.
A little bit.
Yeah.
So you guys were talking about embryology.
Yep. That's the
The big
episode this week is embryology.
Did you see my embryology debate, Austin?
Yeah, that was debate
right?
number 2, right? With the Hawaiian shirt man.
No, that was one of my like debate number 4 or 5.
Oh man, you've done so many with him.
It's hard to keep track. Jeez.
I did see the one where you talked about embryology. So I know you know Haeckel, which is what Dave was just talking about a little bit. Oh.
Bro, my second debate, I literally lost to Kent in my second debate.
You did?
Yeah, just because he steamrolled me the entire time, and I didn't. He just kept over talking me the whole time. So
debates are a game, basically a football game. I mean, they aren't that important.
I can agree with that.
I think there's value in them.
A little bit,
and, debating Kent is hard, and I was inexperienced, but I've gotten a lot better. But that second debate, I really got my ass kind of kicked. But that's why I was saying in our debate review that if you go back and watch that debate and you compare it to my newest debate, there's a big difference in how I don't let Kent Gallop. I don't let him control the talk time. I don't let him control the flow of the debate or the topic. Like I'll just basically interrupt him if I have to, not blatantly, but like I'll do it, and Kent will back down. And like it's sort of an intimidation thing. Like Kent will basically, like, you'll be trying to say something and Kent will basically overtalk you and then he wants you to stop, and then he'll just gish gallop for like 2 minutes, and then you're no longer making your point, and the audience isn't hearing you talk anymore, and like you just can't let him do that.
Yeah.
It's a super dishonest thing that he does, because he's an older man, and he has a loud voice if he needs to, and he has a lot of debate experience. And I'll admit that there was an intimidation factor, because debating Ken is not easy. Did you find that, Austin, that it was difficult for your first debate?
So when I went in, I was under the impression that there were going to be a significant amount of young people in the audience. I was thinking, because if you've watched some of Kent's debates, a lot of times he'll say, well, we've got a 5-year-old in the audience right here, Hovind. Let's find out what they think. What do you think, Mackenzie? And like, so I was expecting that they would actually have some kids. So when I thought there were going to be kids around, I was like, I was nervous for it. I thought it was super important that I do really well, because anybody from the age 4 to 14 has a much better chance of being reached by that kind of interaction, I think, And so when that was one of the first things I asked when they invited me in, and, Kent was immediately there. I was like, oh my God, Donnie, you trying to give me a heart attack? There's Kent himself, and so I did get around. I kind of, blew a little smoke up their asses a little bit, kissed up to them a little bit to kind of build rapport. And I thought that was, kind of useful to do. And it did help me kind of like keep the debate on the rails a little bit. And I think you have been able to do that a little bit too, similarly, because you are nice to Donnie and you tell him when he's doing a good job and all that stuff. And he does do a good job often. But
is it better? Is my audio better?
Long answer, yes. Short answer, no. Because when I did start the debate, I found out there wasn't actually any young people in the audience, which meant nobody's mind was getting changed.
You mean in Kent's church in Kent? How do you know?
Because I asked him, and he said there was one young person there, and I asked how old is this young person. He said 28, and I was like, that's not really a young person, but okay.
Well, yeah, I think you I'm not sure if necessarily because you technically don't know who is watching any YouTube video.
That's a good point. Somebody did say in the comments afterwards that their kid was watching and that she thought it was funny and was mocking Hovind. So to that 7-year-old, you're on a good path. Keep learning.
and I think I would disagree with your sort of hypothesis here, because I think young people are making their formative beliefs, and what these debates are about is trying to get people who are either set in their ways or who are on the fence in their adult life and getting them to change their minds, or to plant that seed and get them to maybe think down the road about some of these things. You know what I mean? So I don't think that you shouldn't say that the debate was not worth it because there was no kids in the audience, because people of any age can have their mind changed technically.
I mean, true. It's just a lot less likely. I think the older you are, the less likely.
Yeah. Well, I became an atheist when I was like about 7 years old, I think. Because I remember specifically, I was in Sunday school, and it was the first time I had ever heard the story of Noah's Ark. And I just remember thinking, like, there's no way they could have fit that many animals in the ark.
Yeah.
And from that moment on, I just was never convinced. I just was never a Christian. And I just didn't care about religion, and I didn't like going to church because I wanted to sleep in on the weekends,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm like you. I agree with what you said about how even though I'm an atheist, I wouldn't say that I love religion, because I think religion is very harmful, but I do think this history of Christianity is very interesting and fascinating to study. And the history of religion and comparative religions I think there's a lot of value in that. But religion itself, I think, is an unfortunate defect of archaic society that we'll never get rid of, I don't think. But anyway, embryology. So I did that debate with Kent. Did you see the whole thing, or you saw? I know I wanted you to watch my intro because I'm very happy with that intro.
I watched the whole intro, but anytime I watch a Kent Hovind debate, because his debates are so heterogeneous and not heterogeneous, the opposite, homogeneous, and similar and
repetitive and tedious.
Nauseating.
Skip through large parts of it, usually when he is talking. But I listen to I think all of your points for sure.
Yeah,
that's what I do. I skip the Hawaiian shirt parts and I just listen because I already know what the Hawaiian shirt is saying. I don't need to hear it again. Yeah.
You can tell by his opponent's responses what he said in his parts.
The slides give it away too. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So I
got a slide for that.
I think that embryology debate, I was very happy with. I think that's my best debate, although my last one was very good as well, I think.
Absolutely.
I really tried.
I like the one where you had the outfit on, AJ. That's the one.
Yeah. Have you seen that one, Austin? Have you seen? Was that the embryology debate?
Which one?
Was the embryology debate where I was wearing the costume?
I think so, yeah.
Did you like the costume?
Yeah. You dressed up as Haeckel?
Yeah, well, I got the idea from Dr. Dan. He said because Kent Hovind wants to argue about science from the 18th century, that I should dress like somebody from the 18th century. And I was like, that's a great idea.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
So
that's double. Yeah, that's double my favorite one then, AJ.
Yeah, I love Bram Stoker's Dracula by Francis Ford Coppola. I love that movie.
Yeah.
Oh,
And-
you got a friend in Mrs. Desk. I bought her the book and everything. She's got the movie, the book, everything. Yeah.
Yeah, and I love Gary Oldman just in general as an actor, but his character in that movie, I love his costumes. And I that's what I was going for with that look, was with the little glasses, and people loved it. My audience loved that costume, and I think it was a debate where I really I spent a lot of time rehearsing my intro, and I felt like I was very prepared. And I think in that debate was where I developed the strategy of telling Donnie, like, look, I need to go first. I want to go first. And I intentionally, because Hovind is so predictable, you know what he's going to say. I intentionally will undercut his arguments in my intro, and then it just cuts the legs off anyway. Yeah.
By the way, I prefer the Gary Oldman from The Fifth Element.
John Baptiste Emmanuel Zorg. No, but I was going to say that movie, Dracula by Coppola. Yeah. That movie is a cinematic freaking masterpiece.
I agree.
The cinematography on that film is so beautiful, so haunting. It is gorgeous. And they went above and beyond to make it look as beautiful as they did. There's what comes to mind is there's one particular scene where
I think I know what you're going to say.
They're reading a book and a train is going by in the background, and they couldn't achieve exactly the right look they wanted with a real perspective shot. So they built a giant book so that they could get this one shot. And it is one of the most gorgeous shots of the movie, but that level of dedication to your craft that speaks to, how much they believed in their vision of that film. It was phenomenal.
Well, I love the scene where I think it is when he's riding the train and you see the eyes of Dracula in the sunset. That was a very cool effect.
And there was the 90s when this movie came out? It wasn't there
was
like
1990
effects, but it wasn't at that level yet, Yeah.
It even overcame having Keanu Reeves in it as Jonathan Harker.
I don't mind Keanu Reeves.
Don't get me wrong, I love Keanu Reeves in just about everything, but he did not belong in that movie.
I think he was miscast, but I think the movie is. My only complaint about that movie is I don't like how Winona Ryder kisses him at the end of the movie on his monster lips. It's gross.
Yeah, that's fair.
That was weird. But
well, I did say we were going to keep this a slightly shorter episode this week. I think we got some good embryology content in there. We talked a little bit about some other fun, house announcements and some good movies. And I'm really excited for Bad Science Sunday. I think we'll head over to watch that when that comes off. Do we want to share all of our social media stuff before we get going and then wrap it up?
Sure.
Captive Desk.
Yeah, I'm my channel's Atheist Junior, and then I'm on Twitter also at Atheist Junior, and then I have a Patreon as well. And my Discord server has been popping off lately, so I appreciate you joining it, because sometimes it gets a little bit dead, but it's really been having a lot of activity. And I think that I have a good Discord server because there's some atheist YouTubers who I go on their servers and they want to spread everything out to a million different channels. And I'm like, no, just keep everything in the general channel. And there are other channels, but it's too spread out, and then it seems like the actual owner of the channel is never there. So I really try to engage with my viewers in the Discord. So come hang out with us in the Discord if you haven't. It's pretty fun.
Yeah. All righty. Well, that was a little bit of an amuse-bouche where it's not the full embryology breakdown, but we got a little bit of it out, and we're going to do part 2 next week. Thanks everybody for stopping by.
It's
subscribe. Like, subscribe, ring that notification bell. I'm trying to get up to 1,000 subscribers up in here. Let's go. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Thank you very much.
Later.